This is Chapter 14 of Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. Franco. To understand what happened in Spain in 1936, one must have at least a general idea of the type of man Franco really is. Franco entered the Spanish army seriously, intending to make it his career. His life in the army reads like a romance. He distinguished himself after he was appointed to the Spanish Legion. He turned the defeats inflicted on the General Sylvester by the Moors into a final victory. Not only did he lead his troops fearlessly, but he inspired in them great confidence because of his genius regarding strategy. He also earned the respect of his foes because of his military progress and his sound administrative policies in Morocco. The Moors finally looked upon him as almost divine. They came to call him the victorious, chief in chiefs, brave as a lion. The above facts explain why they rallied around him when he asked for their loyalty in July 1936. Franco is not spoken of as being popular with his brother generals. He did, however, have the respect of most of them. It was this fact that prevented the Popular Front government being turned into a totalitarian dictatorship. Hazana, Caballero, and Carlos Prieto dominated the Popular Front governments. Senor Gilles Robles and Calvo Sotelo led the rightist opposition. When Sotelo revealed in the Cortes that between February and June 1936 there had been 113 general strikes, 218 partial strikes, 284 buildings, 176 churches, 69 clubs, and 10 newspapers offices burned, and over 3,300 assassinations committed, Casares Quiroga, premier at the 298th time, jumped to his feet and angrily reported, "You will be held personally responsible for the emotion your speech will cause." Dolores Ibarruri, a communist named Pasioaria, because of her inflammatory speeches and fanatical actions, was a member of the Spanish Cortes. She jumped to her feet and, pointing her finger at Sotelo, literally screamed, "That man has made his last speech." She proved to be right. On July 13th, 1936, Senor Calvo Sotelo was dragged from his home by 15 assault guards under the command of Captain Don Angel Moreno. He was taken to a nearby churchyard and murdered. It was this event that caused many of the Spanish generals to break their oath to the Grand Orients and ask Franco to take over leadership in Spain. Dolores Ibarruri was a Stalinist agent in Spain. She had been entrusted with the task of corrupting army officials, organizing and directing raids on government armories, and arming the revolutionary forces in Spain. She performed her various tasks most efficiently. Assault guards raided the houses of many other prominent anti-communists, including Sotelo's murder, but most of them had been warned and made the escape. On the day of the elections, February 1936, General Franco telephoned General Pozza, who was in charge of the civil guard. He warned him that the communists elected to the Cortes planned to stir up mob violence in the hope that they could develop a revolutionary effort for the purpose of overthrowing the Republican government. General Pozza informed General Franco that he thought his fears were exacerbated. General Franco next telephoned General Molero, the Minister of War. He informed him that the threatening danger. Franco suggested that he be allowed to declare martial law. Franco drew up the necessary orders which would give him the authority to prevent excesses and mob violence. The only signatures of the Council of Ministers were necessary to enable him to preserve law and order and protect the Republican government from revolutionary action. But Portelo, who was then acting as premier, pleaded that he was too old to put the cabinet's decision into practice. Franco reported, "You have brought Spain to this sorry pass. It is your duty now to try and save her." General Franco was given orders to proceed to the Canary Islands. The order actually meant his virtual exile from Spain. Before he left, General Franco had a conference with Generals Mole and Varela. They assured him they felt certain that once the other generals who had joined the Grand Orient military lodges knew the truth, most of them would break with the Grand Orients and accept his leadership. Before the meeting broke up, a secret means of communication between Mola and Franco had been arranged. Immediately, Franco deported from the Canary Islands, Stalin's agents renewed their activities. On June 23, 1936, Franco wrote a long letter to the Minister of War in which he once again pointed out specific dangers. But these warnings were ignored, as the others had been. It was obvious that the communist members of the Republican government were able to dominate its policy and actions. The murder of Calve Sotelo on July 13th decided Franco. He sent a coded message to the generals who were sworn to fight to save Spain from a Russian satellite state. Amongst those Franco contacted were Mola, Godet, Fanjul, Sanjurjo, Saliquet, some officers of the Spanish Navy, and Queipo de Llano. After the message was sent, Franco flew from the Canaries to Tetuan, where he knew he could rely upon the loyalty of the Moroccan troops. On July 21, 1936, Franco issued his proclamation, which defined the issue at stake in the least possible number of words. It reads, "It is the duty of every man to enter his definite struggle between Russia and Spain." Thus started the Civil War. Professor Unamuno exclaimed, "The issue is even fewer words." He said, "It is a struggle of Christianity against barbarism." He should have said, against Illuminism. Other evidence was obtained to prove that Stalin's Comintern plotted to subjugate Spain to bring about a total war between Britain and her allies. On the one side, in Germany and her allies on the other. There is the report of meeting of the political secretariat of the Comintern, which took place January 25, 1938. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss ways and means to develop the revolutionary effort in Spain and North Africa. Attending the meeting were representatives of the Profitern and the foreign branches of the GPU, the secret police. All of Moscow's most experienced revolutionary leaders were present. Yechov, head of the secret section of the Comintern, Georges Dimitrov of the Reichstag, Fire Infamy, head of the League of the Godless and the Free Thinkers League, then the secretary of the Communist International, Sheikh Manuilsky Lozovsky of the Profintern, Popescu, Weintroben, Gorovich, Lineman, Turini, Adami, and Valdez, who represented the Soviets of Foreign Affairs in the Political Bureau of the Comintern. These are the names of men who all took an active part in spreading the sphere of communist influence around the world in latter years. After the meeting opened, Dmitriev gave a fiery speech. He denounced the lack of missionary vigor amongst the special military envoys who had been sent to Spain to help corrupt the Popular Front government and direct the military operations of the loyalist armies. Their actions, he said, has not had sufficient stimulus and revolutionary elan on the general European masses. The results obtained have not justified the heavy risks taken. The principal struggle, which is to bring about an armed conflict between two groups of capitalistic states, has not been reached. Then he went on to advocate the Soviet military commandment in Spain should pass under the control of the Comintern emissaries, like the ambassadors who know how to impregnate him with the necessary revolutionary feeling. In the Civil War in Spain, the propaganda issued at the time convinced the average person that a small group of generals in Spain had organized a revolt to overthrow the Republican Popular Front government and establish a military dictatorship. The Popular Front forces named themselves Loyalists. Franco forces called them Nationalists. The Loyalists called themselves Nationalists. The Loyalists were comprised of all political factions, left of center. The Nationalists contained all political factions, right of center. The Communists were divided into two groups: those who intended to turn the proletarian dictatorship into a Stalinistic totalitarian state, and those who wished to make the Spanish Soviet a unit in the International of Soviet Republics, as advocated by the Marxism theory. The nationalistic forces included men who had sponsored the Carlist movement, which, ever since 1937, had as its cause the restoration of the Spanish throne to the descendants of Don Carlos. The Carlists were located in the Navarre province, and they supported Franco's nationalistic army simply because they didn't intend to tolerate communism in Spain. On the right also were the Phalangists, the extreme rightists, among whom there were undoubtedly quite a number of the German type of Nazi who believed in using total war to subdue their leftist enemies. With a situation of this kind, it is understandable that those on the right accuse all those on the left of being communists, while all those on the left accused all those right of center of being fascists. Most horrible atrocities, including torture, manipulation, rape, and the execution of thousands of innocent victims, were committed by the communists as a part of the accepted pattern of reign of terror. A few extremists on the Franco side committed atrocities also. All civil wars seem to turn a great number of men into inhumane brutes who descend below the level of brute beasts once the bloodlust has been aroused in them. Civil war cannot be justified. Those who advocate revolutionary wars should be executed. The evidence goes to show that the King of Spain in 1931 and General Franco in 1936 did everything in their power to avoid fighting a civil war. Franco did not call upon the citizens of Spain to rally around him until he had exhausted every other means of preventing the communist coup taking place on July 26, 1936. The professional army in Spain had been reduced greatly in numbers, and it had been replaced by a national police force controlled by the leftist government. It is extraordinary that Franco's bid to defeat the communist plots did not fail, because post-war investigations revealed that in 1936 the armed forces were riddled with traitors, both officers and men, who had been placed in key positions by the agents of Moscow working within the Popular Front government in Spain. On July 21, 1936, the Moscow-directed organization for taking over the government in Spain was complete. Franco knew that in one day Giulio Alvarez del Valle, who was foreign minister in the Republican government and commissioner general, appointed hundreds of political commissars to the Republican Army. The majority of these men were communists. Valle did this without consulting the premier. The commissar compelled soldiers to join the Communist Party, offering them advantages and promotion. If they did, and they threatened persecution by every means in their power if they did not. Luis Araquistain, ex-ambassador of the Spanish Republic in Paris, published 304 this fact in the New York Times, May 19, 1939. It was proved to be true. Indalecio Prieto was a Spanish socialist deputy and prime minister of national defense during the Spanish Civil War. He helped direct the war against Franco. In a report published in Paris in 1939 entitled "How and Why I Left the Ministry of National Defense," he said, "It is difficult to be on guard because there are communists occupying confidential positions who, so as to avoid suspicion, are ordered to hide their affiliation, and sometimes ordered to conceal it by joining other parties. Dr. Juan Negrin was one of these. He was one of the most powerful men in Spain during the Civil War." Prieto wrote of him, "Because I refused to obey orders from Moscow, Juan Negrin expelled me from the government over which he presided on April 5, 1938. I occupied the post of Minister of National Defense in his government. Two simultaneous actions were initiated against me. One was entrusted to the Russian secret police and military men who operated in our country, and the other to the Spanish communists. The Russian ordered, the Spanish communists obeyed." Dr. Juan Negrin claims he was, as is, not a communist, but it was he who ordered that 7,000 boxes of Spanish gold be delivered to Stalin. The boxes were loaded in the ship Kine, Neve, and Volgils. All three displayed the Soviet flag. Jose Velasco and Arturo Candela accompanied the shipments as persons of trust to Odessa. Everything was done undercover, and other members of the Popular Front government were not cognizant of the situation. During Negrin's term of office, 3 communists were appointed as under-secretaries of defense, and thus were the true masters of the Republican Army, Navy, and Air Force. Largo Caballero was a communist, but when he refused to obey the order given him by Moscow's emissaries, they overruled his orders even when he was serving their presidential term. When he tried to rectify his own mistakes, he found it too late. How Moscow's agents in foreign lands obtained such an absolute control of leftist leaders is explained by Prieto. He wrote, "The majority of the military commands of the Popular Front government were finally occupied by communists, and in their hands were the most important reins of power. How could that phenomenon happen? Though a system of coercion graduated between personal advancements of those who bowed their heads and the murder of those who rebelled." Theo Rogers, in his Spain, A Tragic Journey, makes reference to the capture of documents which proved beyond doubt that a full-scale revolution had been planned to break out in July 1936. Rogers wrote, "Discovery amongst militant communists and anarchists of documents and plans showed that a carefully schemed plot had been matured for an outbreak, which would upset even the central government in Madrid and establish a Soviet dictatorship, the work of the Illuminati. Rogers' statement was proved to be true. Evidence was proved to prove that both General Franco and General Mola knew as early as April 1936 that a communist coup was planned first for May 1st, then set back to June 29th, and then set back again to July 22nd. The delays were ordered to give those who were entrusted with putting the plan of revolt into effect more time to complete the final necessary details. The whole world should have known of the Moscow-directed plot against Spain because of the final orders were intercepted while being passed by the Comintern to the leaders of the revolutionary movement in Spain. The documents were given to the Echo de Paris, which published them in April 1936. The Echo de Paris article reads, "Text of instruction for the Red Militia. These instructions to the head of the Spanish Red Militia do not emanate from a Spanish centralized organization, but from the technical services in Paris, which sent them to Spain at that date. Those technical services are those of the French Communist Party, working in close cooperation with the Comintern and its delegates in France. The documents which we are publishing is in the hands of the government. We were not the parties who communicated it to them. We are convinced that Monsieur Daladier, Minister of War and Defense, have given orders for preventive measures of defense and protection to be taken. The abbreviated text is as follows. 1. Reinforce shock troops and guards in barracks and supply them with automatic pistols. These shock troops and guards are members of the Communist Party serving in the permanent forces and reserves. 2. These troops will be placed in communication with the groups who are to break into the barracks. The latter will be in uniform and under the orders of our officers in whom we have complete confidence. 3. When the fight starts, our officers will be given immediate admittance with the air groups secretly. They will contact the representative committees and carry out the prearranged plan of attack inside the barracks. 4. Provisional committees in the barracks shall renew every 2 days their list of enemies, neutrals, sympathizers, and experts. When the barracks have been taken over, those classed as enemies, including the particulars, all commanders and officers, shall be rapidly eliminated and without hesitation. 5. Each member of the committees shall be provided with a list of the names of individuals who are to be murdered by himself personally. 6. After the enemies have been disposed of, neutrals shall be subjected to severe teats in order to kill in them any hesitation habitual in such undecided characters. 7. The committees handling the neutrals will make the necessary arrangements for the vigilance group outside to enter the barracks on the pretext of assisting to put down the rebellion. 8. This has little importance. 9. Those detailed to liquidate generals on the active list shall consist of 10 men with revolvers. The generals have 2 adjustments and a secretary, who must be murdered in their own homes. Those detailed to perform these killings shall not withdraw any in face of any obstacle or opposition, and they shall eliminate anyone who opposes them, regardless of sex or age. 10. Those detailed to eliminate generals not holding command shall consist of 3 men groups and shall carry out their duties as outlined in preceding paragraph. 11 and 12. Details how houses and sites in strategic positions must be procured by communist militants and secretly armed and fortified in order to ambush troops who may succeed in escaping from barracks. The instructions read, as military officers have protected cars, groups of our militants must protect a strategic points such as crossroads in cars and trucks armed with machine guns so as to prevent helping reaching those inside the cities. Lorries shall carry up supplies of grenades. 13. Our militants shall quickly put on the uniform previously obtained and they shall be served with rifles. 14. When the rebellion breaks out of militant groups wearing uniforms of the civil guard and of the assault guard and equipment already prepared for them, shall arrest all heads of all political parties under pretext of the necessity of doing so for their personal protection. Once in custody, the procedure for the elimination of generals not holding command shall be carried out. Uniformed groups shall also arrest and detain important capitalists whose name appear in Appendix B of Circular Number 32. 15. Violence shall not be used against these capitalists except if they resist. They shall, however, be forced to hand over the balance of their current accounts at the banks and their securities. In the event of concealments, they shall he completely eliminated, including their families without exception. It is desirable that cells shall be worked in on their staff as domestics or mechanics, as they can be very useful. 16. Can be skipped. 17. With regards to members of the armed forces who claim to be sympathizers of the same tactics shall be followed as was done in Russia. First, use their services and then eliminate them as enemies. For our effort to be successful and permanent, a neutral officer or man is better than one who has betrayed his uniform because his life was in danger. It is likely he would betray us also if provided with the opportunity. 18. Instructions to our militia regarding mobilization, movements of transportation, use of arms, and marksmanship must be intensified. 19. Militia posted at crossroads must eliminate all defeated troops trying to escape. 20. Machine gun posts shall be located in premises which cover the front and rear of all armories, police stations, and fire halls, and all approaches to and exits from the cities, and if, in spite of this, the enemy are able to get out, they shall be attacked with hand grenades. 21. Other militia shall be placed in armored lorries in strategical position within the cities, not more than a kilometer apart. They shall also be armed with machine guns. 22. Liaison shall be by light cars and cyclists who shall be armed with revolvers. 23. It is of no special importance. 24. The most intimate details concerning the lives and characters of all neutrals and sympathizers must be obtained and carefully recorded, including their family requirements and the influence of which love of their children and desire of these necessary requirements may exercise over them. If any of our militia or any of the neutrals and sympathizers show any kind of weakness or resistance to orders, they must be denounced to the highest committee of the organization as being guilty of compliance and or reaction. 25. Our militia must be organized to work away from their own homes and localities because experience has taught us that at the last moment, through sentimentalism, men working in their own localities and amongst their families and friends have failed to carry out our plan with proper enthusiasm. 26. All owners of despots of goods and merchandise shall be regarded as important capitalists. These despots must be organized to serve the proletariat through the administrative groups. 27 deals with the question of using starvation as a means of reducing opposition quickly, and confirms what has been said regardless of the use of this weapon in national disputes and international warfare. It reads, during the first week until the constitution becomes normal, the supply of food and drink to the bourgeoisie is prohibited. 28. Reads, stock of foods in barracks and in the hands of our enemies which cannot be captured must be rendered useless by mixing paraffin or other substances with them. Since these orders were issued, the revolutionary leaders in all countries have been giving special instructions to make careful plans to deal with the numbers of the police and fire departments, because experience has shown that the majority of these civil employees remain loyal to their bourgeoisie bosses. The action recommended is to 1. Infiltrate into the two forces, 2. Corrupt the rank and file, 3. Party members are urged to purchase or rent properties covering the approaches to both back and front of police station and fire halls so the members can be eliminated as they change shifts. The hour to revolt is to coincide with the time the police change shifts. The orders which were given to the leaders of the Communist Party in Spain detailed how they were to take over all 11 public utilities and public services, as well as civic administration. The objectives were to obtain, in the shortest possible time, full and absolute control of all food supplies and communication systems. Revolutionary orders seized at Majorca in October 1936 were translated by Jacques Bardou, who afterwards wrote Chaos in Spain. They were on their way to revolutionary leaders in Spain, Spanish documents, with the object of being able to control the smallest details of the movement. From the 8th of May, only the link agents will be able to give orders, and they will communicate with each other by means of the cipher ELM 54-22. The local leaders must give verbal instructions to the committee with the help of the following code. 1.2.1. Orders to begin mobilization. 212. Orders to begin the revolt. 22111. Order to attack at predetermined points. 333. Revive the counter-revolutionaries. 243. Mobilization of trade unions. 255. General strike. 265. Acts of sabotage, i.e. blowing up railways, lines, etc. 132. Signal to put off the revolt. 110. Order to provision. 100. Reorganization is ready. 00. Closed frontiers and ports. 11. Execution of those whose names are on the black list. All these orders will be given on the day before the revolt, May 1st or the 29th, at midnight from the transmitter installed in the Casa del Pueblo at Madrid, the wavelength of which is necessarily the same as that of the Madrid Union Radio. Organization of Madrid, to be divided into the following sections: AB, Chamartín de la Rosa, HQ at the Casa del Pueblo of this district. CD, 40 Caminos, HQ at Socialist Club of the district. EF, Palace District, HQ at the printing works of the Mundo Obrero. GH, University District, HQ at editorial offices of El Socialista. IG, Latina District, HQ at Casa del Pueblo. MN Inclusa District, HQ at Socialist Center. NO Padinas District, HQ at Garage at Castello 19. PQ Southern District, HQ at Socialist Center of Vallecas. RS Carabanchel District, HQ at Socialist Club. TUV Center of Madrid, HQ at Casa del Pueblo Secretaries. XYZ offices Nos 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 balcony room. Plan of campaign in Madrid. The revolts will be announced by 5 bombs let off at dusk. Immediately, a fascist attack on one of the CNT labor centers will be fixed. Then a general strike will be declared, and the soldiers and chiefs who support us will rise in revolt. The groups will come into action. Those designated in TUV will take over the Bureau of Communications, the Presidency, and the Ministry of War. Those belonging to the district will attack the commissariat, and those who belong to the XYZ section will take the Bureau of Public Safety. A special group composed exclusively of machine gunners and with hand grenades will go to the headquarters of the government and attack it by the following routes: Caretas, Montera, Mayor, Correros, Paz, Alcalá, Arenal, Preciados, Carmen, and San Jerónimo. The groups, composed of 50 cells of 10 men each, will act in the streets of the second and third order, and the 2 cells only in those of the first order and in the avenues. The orders are for the immediate execution of all the counter-revolutionaries who have been detained. The Republicans of the Popular Front will be asked to support the movement, and in ease of refusal they will be expelled from Spain. French document. Secret. To the leaders of groups and sections. Cell of St. George du Bois, Lookout Station. First group, HQ, Town Hall. Leaders of Group A, Presidents. First section, B, 4 volunteers, 5 rifles, 1 revolver. 70 pounds of ammunition for rifle, 20 for revolver, 15 grenades. Second section, C, 6 volunteers, 4 rifles, 3 revolvers, 70 pounds of ammunition for rifle, 20 for revolver. Third section, D, Leader C, 4 volunteers for distributing arms and ammunition and for making ammunition, 6 revolvers, 15 cans petrol, 25 cans, 5 liters each, reserve, issued to Comrade C. Second group, HQ Railway Station, Leader DEP, 7 volunteers, 8 rifles, 80 rounds of ammunition, 26 of dynamite issued to Comrade E. Third group, at the station, Leader FE, 5 volunteers, 2 experts, 6 rifles, 1 revolver, 60 rounds of ammunition for rifle, 20 for revolver. 1,500 meters of insulated telephone wire issued to Comrade F. Fourth group, attacking party, HQ basement of Town Hall, Leader G. First section, H, 4 volunteers, 4 rifles, 50 rounds of ammunition, 10 knives, 12 ropes. Second section, 1, 4 volunteers, 4 rifles, 50 rounds of ammunition, 10 knives, 10 ropes, special instructions. Second group, blow up railway and fascist convoys. Third group, link immediately telephone exchange PO, railway station, and town hall. To all groups, save ammunition pending arrival of arms and ammunition from the cell at Rochefort. First group to commander all provisions, animals, and fodder pending arrival of instructions from Rochefort for distribution. Comrade Presidents, authors, comments. Recent history has proved that the instructions given by the Illuminati through Moscow for the subjugation of Spain have since been brought up to date and carried out in all countries in Europe, which have been subjugated since 1936. There is no reason to believe that the fifth column in Canada and the USA is less thoroughly organized. The fifth column is ready to carry out the Illuminati's orders when those who direct the world revolutionary movement consider the time opportune. There is ample evidence to prove that the members of the Communist Party in Canada and the USA have, since 1948, been practicing speedy evacuation from large cities and industrial areas so they could be in the country on picnics and other reasonable excuses during the initial stages of the Soviets' bombing raid. They plan to return and take over while conditions are chaotic and the inhabitants are still in a state of panic. While it is necessary to check Illuminism in Europe and Asia, it will be a tremendous and costly area if we fail to realize the full extent of the danger of their fifth column. We must remove our internal danger, or all our politics for civic emergency defense will be useless. We must deal with the enemy within first, then our defense plans and other matters will fit smoothly into gear, unhampered by traitors and saboteurs. The fact to remember is that communists are used to start the revolt. Those who lead the communists when the dictatorship of the proletariat, which in turn is taken over by the agenda of the Illuminati. If you have enjoyed this chapter 14 of Pawns in the Game, please consider subscribing. It would be greatly appreciated. And next week for chapter 15, The Revolutionary Reign of Terror.